What is going on? We are here with the Akai MPC 2000. However, the main star of today's event is twofold. First, we have the Roland S760 and the Ensoniq Mirage. Two amazing samplers. The Roland really impressed me. It's my first serious Roland sampler and it just sounds amazing. I've used it quite extensively on the new album History Never Gets Old. Mark your calendars. That's when it's going to drop. And the sound of it is very, very sweet. Similar to the ASR 10 if I were to compare it. However, the purpose of today's video is based on a topic again that we had in our live stream this weekend to illustrate the differences between samplers and why you may want to use different samplers for different sound qualities. So the question that came up is based on the fact that the Roland S760 has a scalable sample rate and a scalable bit depth. Sample rates we all know are pretty common. You can change them on most samplers, but the bit depth, only some samplers, especially in the vintage variety, allow you to actually alter the bit depth. And the Roland S760 does do that. So if that's the case, what would be the point of having a true 8-bit sampler like the Ensoniq Mirage? They should sound the same, yeah? And although on paper the S760 can achieve the limitations of the Ensoniq Mirage, they do not sound the same, definitely. And we're just going to illustrate that today with a little comparison between the two. So first, let us start with our main samples. These two samples that I'm about to play you were sampled into the Roland S760 at 48 kilohertz, 16-bit, which is the native resolution for bit depth and sample rate of the Roland S760. So you'll hear its true sound fidelity and it sounds amazing. Check this out. All right, and we're just going to move over to the second sample. Here's the second sample. All right, you know the rest. I've used this a million times. Now, that is what it sounds like on full power, full resolution. That is the S760 in its brightest moment. So what we'll do now is I've scaled back the bit depth of these very two same samples down to 8-bit, which is the native resolution of the Mirage. I've also pulled back the sample rate to something that both samplers are comfortable in achieving, which is 16 kilohertz. So we have an 8-bit dynamic range and a 16 kilohertz sample rate resolution. And I've also done the same on the Mirage with the sample rate, and it's already 8-bit, so I don't have to do anything. So I'll now play the samples from the S760, and then we'll go back and forth between the Mirage, and you'll be able to hear the differences between the two, even though they are at the same sample rate and same bit depth. All right. So we will start with the first sample coming out of the S760. All right, and then we'll go over to the Mirage. All right, sample time limits us on how far we can sample. Let's go over to the second sample. This is the drum loop from the S760. And then we'll go over to the same drum sample coming out of the Mirage. All right, so there's a difference there. They are both set to the same thing on paper, but you hear the differences between the two. Let's go over that again. We'll start off with the first sample coming out of the SM60. Mirage. S760. Mirage. All right, so even though the S760 is more powerful in virtually every single way as far as specs go, the Mirage still has its special character that I just think is amazing. And because the S760 can degrade itself down to 8-bit, it's still operating within a 16-bit world. So it's basically almost like an effect rather than a true native depth that it has to adhere to. Whereas the Mirage, 8-bit is what it is. It can't go any higher. And truthfully, you can't get any lower unless you alter that. The native bit depth of the Mirage and its limitations, also due to other things like the converters and everything in it, make it sound completely different and, in my view, much more appealing when operating at 8-bit mode. Now, if we go back to the 48K resolution of the S760, I mean, that just sounds like gold, puts the Mirage to shame. However, for me, I wanted the best 8-bit sampler that I can get, and right out of the gate, the Mirage does the trick every single time. There's nothing that sounds like it. It's just amazing. So for me, I wouldn't buy a sampler that's able to scale down to 8-bit and then call it a day. I want to start right from the ground up in an 8-bit framework so that everything I do from there will sound the way I want it. And by the way, I've adjusted the input anti-aliasing filter on the Mirage down to 8 kilohertz, basically half of 16 kilohertz, which is the sample rate that we did this test based on, eliminating the artifacts of any aliasing or anything like that to enter into the test. So everything was pretty much apples to apples for the most part. I mean, these are two different samplers that are years apart, but it just goes to show that not all 8-bit are the same, and definitely not all samplers are the same. This is why when sampling is your main axe, you have different types of samplers because they just have different characters. They dress up your sound a different type of way. And if you have the ability to do so, having more than one sampler definitely plays its part. Let me know what you heard and what you thought. Me personally, I just like the Mirage for what it does, and the S760 for what it does is just amazing. It's becoming a true character for me in the studio, and both of them, can't say enough good things about them. Anyhow, that is all I wanted to share. In the meantime, please do take care of yourself. Peace.